today's presentation, as you see on the screen, we will be covering microaggressions. This is our fourth session of 6. We'll have Jazmin present a mental health topic, followed by a career panel of behavioral health professionals who will talk about their career paths. Thank you all once again for joining us.
Hello. So for today, we're going to be presenting on microaggressions. And so you might be asking yourself, what are microaggressions? And it's a relatively new word that I even came across as a person of color, female identifying, going in an area of higher education where folks don't necessarily identify as me, right? So, buckle up, we're in for a ride, and hopefully you'll be able to gather some information today that'll help you navigate through life a lot differently starting today, just because our identity affects how we navigate through life. And so by having the information on what microaggressions is, you'll be able to move through life a lot more consciously, and also just taking care of yourself as an individual and who you are as a person. So who am I? For those who are new, my name is Jazmin Rojas, pronouns she, they. I am a 4th year at UCI, where I am studying psychological and biological sciences. So quick disclaimer before we officially get started, the information presented today is not therapy. If any of this information identifies with you and you want to seek some help, feel free to contact us for further assistance. And also be aware that at the end of the presentation, I'll be able to provide some resources based on the Coachella Valley. So community agreements, I like to have a set of rules where we kind of, establish that this is a safe space. And most importantly, this is your space. So first and foremost, throw sunshine, not shade. We're in a room of positivity. Secondly, what is said here stays here. What is learned here leaves here. Understand that, you're in a safe space. Feel free to be as vulnerable as possible. If you're willing and able to, this is your community. And lastly, take space, make space. So for today, we're going to be defining microaggressions and also providing some real life examples. And secondly, being aware of what microaggressions are and also how they're seen in life. And so we want to make sure we're able to minimize microaggressions, prevent microaggressions, and make sure we know how to respond when microaggressions are actually occurring. So microaggressions. So I have this awesome video that goes beyond the simple definition. Like on the textbook, microaggressions are defined as everyday, subtle, intentional or unintentional interactions or behaviors that communicate some sort of bias towards historically marginalized groups. And so this was defined by Kevin Nadal, a professor of psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So if that definition just doesn't hit the right spot, I have this awesome video that I'd like to share with you. So something that I just want to make a note of again is that microaggressions are some form of hate. They're racist. As seen in the video, there's a lot of things. Can I touch your hair? I thought you were something more exotic. That's something that I even experienced at UCI. I started speaking Spanish on the phone and someone was like, oh, you're Mexican. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I thought you were something more exotic. In my head, I had no idea what that meant, right? And it wasn't until I came across this term where I was like, that is a microaggression. And you have to really realize that these words have intent versus impact. Hearing these comments like, can I touch your hair, seem really harmless, but having to hear them constantly can really make an impact to someone, right? And there's research that really shows how racism and discrimination contributes to poor health among minorities and people of color. And it can really result into increased rates of depression, prolonged stress, trauma, anxiety, and even type 2 diabetes. And as seen on the screen, it really has a negative impact on your personality, always self-doubting, frustration, and even isolation. So awareness, how can we minimize and prevent microaggressions? So first and foremost, be aware and be informed. By figuring out very small comments that we just came across in the video, you're able to understand when it's actually happening. And so minimizing, you want to lead by example, you want to facilitate the discussion and build a supportive culture, right? And all of this happens over a long period of time. It just doesn't happen overnight. And so by being mindful, thinking of what you say, you're able to lead the example to others. And when these conversations happen, like, where are you from? You can really facilitate the discussion and ask, what are you asking? Are you asking about, like, my family, where they're originating from? Or are you asking if I was born in Indio, California, right? Things of that nature. And so ways to prevent it. First and foremost, think before you speak. It's really important to ask yourself, is this helpful? Will it be offensive? If there's a probability of that a joke will offend someone, it's better not to say it, right? And try to practice micro affirmations, things that uplift people, that welcome them and honor their presence. For practicing cultural humility, don't assume you know what people are. Practice not knowing so that you're in the position of learning more about those around you. And remember your friends. Remember that having friends that belong to marginalized communities doesn't excuse you to use slurs and other microaggressions. That's really important, especially now with the conversation, leave particular words to certain communities. And even if you grew within those communities, it does not give you the card to continue using those racial slurs. So how to respond to microaggressions? It's really important to understand the context that you're in, right? If you don't feel safe, you have to know when to leave the situation. If not, it's always welcoming to seek support and don't internalize the racism, right? I get it. We hear things negative and it hurts us. And speaking on the behalf of myself, I stay thinking about it. I tend to ruminate and think, oh, this really happened. Maybe I could have done something differently, right? And it can be tempting to want to change something about yourself or your behavior in order to feel more accepted. But it's really important to stay grounded in the fact that you are not the issue. It's more a topic about racism, right? And so knowing when to leave a situation is really important. And it can be really challenging, especially in the workplace. But it's really important to understand when you need to distance yourself from a toxic situation. You have to think about how many repeated times it's happened. Discrimination can be really taxing and harmful. But at the end of the day, it's really important to recognize when you've hit your limit and when you need to prioritize yourself. I know it was a lot. I hope you're able to sit with the information, and if any of this information applies to you, feel free to continue doing research or even reach out to us where we can continue to have this conversation. Also, if you need further help, I've listed down these 4 essential resources, 4 out of the many that the Coachella Valley has, but in particularly these 4 really apply to this topic at hand, such as the Student Health and Wellness Service at College of the Desert Flow Resource Center. They're very helpful and very universal, whereas the All Desert Wellness Center provides free services for folks above the age of 18, and also the Oasis Coachella Center. They're open Monday through Friday, and they're more than welcome to help you out.
I'm the Senior Program Officer for the Desert Healthcare District. I'm new to that position, and I'm thrilled to be able to contribute to this community. As a Senior Program Officer, my role and responsibilities are primarily to assist the region, which is the Coachella Valley, in making sure that we're able to get services to those in need in this community. It's a very enriched, special, unique community, and I wouldn't have been able to reach this type of position if I hadn't started in behavioral health. This is my 30th year working in behavioral health. I started out years ago as a residential counselor because I really wanted to just kind of figure out how I could be helpful to people. And I was doing that job while I was in college. And I had decided I was going to go to law school and become an attorney. And part of my assignment was they sent me to the local prison. And for 2 weeks, I interviewed inmates to get their histories. And I kept hearing the same thing over and over and over again, that when I was 10, this happened. And when I was 12, we moved for the 10th time. And there were just all these things. And most of the inmates I was interviewing were there for life. They were never going to be released. And so at the end of that 2 weeks, I decided I really wanted to do something to help people before, if at all possible, that they had come to that point in their lives, and provide hope and to help instill in them that they're not alone. So that started my behavioral health kind of path. And so I went to graduate school and graduated from California Baptist University with my master's in counseling psychology. And after that, I was able to behavioral health can take you anywhere you want to go. I can't impress upon you enough how flexible it is, You really just have to decide, how do you want to contribute? And it's one of the few fields that every day you're making an impact. Every single day, you're helping someone to see their path. You're helping someone to understand that they're not alone. They don't have to take this journey alone. And so one of the questions was kind of, what's the challenge? The challenge is also the great thing about it, and that is that you're trying to help someone to make changes in their life. And sometimes as a practitioner, you don't see the changes. So you feel like you're giving all this to someone else and you're not seeing the benefit. And I have to tell you that benefit is there. It's there with that person, and you have to trust that process. I go back in my mind to a story that one Thanksgiving, I was in the grocery store. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I was getting all my stuff, checking out, and I was pushing my cart out in the parking lot, and this guy walked up to me, and I didn't recognize him, but he had been someone that I had provided support to 15 years before that. And now he was an adult, and he remembered me. And he wanted me to show me his family, and he introduced me to his wife and his son. And here's someone that I had no idea if I made an impact at all, but I did. And that's kind of like the beauty of doing this kind of work. Coachella Valley, we have all kinds of room and needs for talented people who want to go into this field. And I hope as you kind of explore it, you really, really think about, what do you really want to do? What fills you inside? And I have to tell you, for me, it was behavioral health work.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shay Moraga. My job title is actually CEO and founder of Sheas Warriors, Life After Cancer. That is the nonprofit that myself and a few of my friends actually started about 4.5 years back, I'd say. And it was started because I went through stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. When you go through cancer, you learn a lot. You learn a lot of what works, what doesn't work. You learn that you have anxiety and fears that you never knew that you had. But you also, for me, not for everybody. So when I say this, I mean it very personally. For me, cancer was a gift. It opened my eyes to things that are needed and that we need to bridge a gap together with our medical communities. Our medical community here in the Coachella Valley is outstanding. We have a lot of awesome doctors, nurses, social work, psychologists, everything. But what I personally experienced was, after cancer, after you're done and the doctor says you are disease-free, no evidence of disease, what happens is everyone celebrates with you. They're excited for you. You get to go on with life. But then there's something that stops you, because the support system that you had prior is gone on a day-to-day basis. Everyone's lives needs to go gradually back to normal, except for the mindset of that person who has gone through cancer. It's always lingering in the back of your mind. Is the cancer going to come back? That personally happened to me. And as I shared my story on a blog through cancer and then after cancer, a lot of people came to me and said, I have those same feelings. And I started to think about it, and I'm like, wow, like how do we get through this? Because I've also noticed too that anyone who's experienced cancer, we're stronger together. And because of the fact, probably because they understand my fears and my anxieties as soon as they tell me they've had cancer. It's just that simple. And it's very hard to explain to others, but others can empathize with that. And what I noticed is there wasn't a lot of people talking about it. So Sheas Warriors Life After Cancer was really starting to be talked about. Life after cancer. We don't want to live in that space of always being the cancer person, but we do want to move on. How do we do that? when we still have those fears and those anxieties that we have inside us. So let me take you back about 20 years ago. I was in college in the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and a friend of mine dragged me to a yoga class. And I was like, no, yoga is for hippies. I'm not into that. My mom was a hippie. She loved it. And so I always had this mindset in my mind, yoga was not for me. I was like on a corporate ladder. I loved what I did. I graduated with communications and theater design back in the day. And I did advertising. And, I was just, I wanted to be the top in my company. And then one day I just decided, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. And why not try that yoga class with my friend? And we did. And there was just something about the yoga class that really soothed me, kept my anxiety levels low. I was able to kind of breathe, go back to work, and just decide on a more calmer level, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? And it wasn't. I ultimately wanted to do my own business, which ironically, and this does cross over with what we do now, it was a property management company. I had an opportunity to invest in a condo at the time, and I started renting out those condos. And then other people said, hey, would you like to manage our condos? And soon enough, I was with a business partner, and we were managing HOAs in the Twin Cities market. That again, kind of with the cities and boom, we really developed this beautiful company, and then cancer hit. And it was almost someone intervening in my life again, saying, you don't want to climb that corporate ladder anymore. You need to go back to your yoga. You need to go back to what is good for you. Because I already knew inside I was all wrapped up in a ball. It was stress, stress, stress. Anyone who's been in property management knows it's a little stressful. And it wasn't something that I was really aligned with anymore and grounded with. So I went back to my yoga. I went back to my teaching. I ended up, this is about 25 years ago, but I have probably more certifications and hours in yoga than I do in my own college degree I went for 4 years at. And I've probably spent more money getting those times and degrees. I did training, 1,000-hour training. I also did trauma training, children's training, restorative yoga, spin instructor, cancer coaching training just recently. And then also I'm a certified master personal trainer. I got that degree just for educational purposes on life after cancer, how now my body can move better after women have gone through breast cancer or after uterine cancer or cervical cancer, whatever that might be, because it's really, really important to know your body, to understand it. And that's what saved my life, because I listened to my body through the gift of just practicing yoga, practicing that mindfulness, and coming from there. It was at that time after I was done, when I would sit in the chemo room with other people, and I'd notice I had a lot of support and friends that would come, and they would be like, well, here's we brought you a tea or something. And then every week, if you've ever been in a chemotherapy room, every week it's the same people, same day, getting their therapy. And there were some people that did not have anyone. And there were people from, Mecca and Thermal, and people from Desert Hot Springs, and people from Beaumont coming down, because we have some of the best doctors around. And this is the place where they're at. And sometimes they'd sit there for 5 hours and nobody would be there. So you get to know some of these people and you talk to them. And I'd say, do you have any friends or family? And they're like, nope, I'm here and I'm just going back to work after this. And it was like, that was what they needed to do. So after I was done with my chemotherapy, for about a year, I'd go back and I would drop off little goodies to someone that might need something, books or, drinks or just little Hard Rock candies, because those are good. And Sheas Warriors kind of came into conception because of the fact I'm like, we need a buddy system. We need to have people that help us. and how do we help us grow in life after cancer? And it's about breathing through. It's about yoga, meditation. It's about getting out to walk. It's about being out in nature and the hike. It's also about finding someone who understands that you now have a second chance at life, and to be able to, no matter what, talk to that person and just get your feelings out. And so that's kind of what we do. We do programming. COVID kind of switched us around a little bit, but we have programming that is our Talk, Listen, and Share, which is an educational portion of life after cancer. How do we get back to stuff? We have a fitness modality of that, where we host just having someone come along with us. There's no charge for this. We go out, we do a fitness community together. We have Coffee and Connection that we hosted in person before COVID. And then now we just do it privately in a private group. And we're planning our retreat for next year, which is a yoga, mindfulness, and wellness retreat that we will hopefully have everybody involved in our valley on that, because it is a bridge and a connection of our medical community and our survivorship community so that we can thrive in life after cancer. So that's what I do. It's an all volunteer board. I still have my real job too. So, but it really is my purpose in after cancer. So